Hello and welcome back to another episode of Only a Bag, the guide to Italian travel. I'm Darcy Melton.
And I'm Nathaniel Mellor.
And this is our third take because I have the giggles today and I can't get things right. But we are going to be talking about sweets and desserts and things for Christmas time and around the holidays in Italy.
Things that you might find on your travels to Italy, here in Italy, but you might not find them the rest of the year. You also might find some of these in the States or in England, possibly in Australia.
Why Australia?
Well, I'm thinking of all of our listener base. We have people who listen from Australia, and that's like our third most listened from
There's
region.
not like a special thing you can get in Italy and Australia. Okay, I thought that was a surprise.
That's a thing, because I think a lot of this is stuff you might be familiar with if you're American or British, because they have made it across the pond.
Yeah.
The strait.
Yes.
The strait, the English channel.
Channel.
That's what we're calling it, the channel. So yeah, there's a lot of things that you might already be familiar with, but hopefully some of them are going to be new to you.
Yeah, maybe we'll surprise you. Who knows?
That'd be nice.
Before we get into it, we want to say thank you to everybody who has been leaving us reviews. They're so nice. And are we responding to everybody? We respond to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Just not like subito, not very quickly.
Not timely. Sorry. We're working on it. But we really appreciate all of you sending us happy thoughts, and we're just really grateful for everybody's feedback.
And we're very happy that the information is helpful and that it is it's something you can use. It's something that you're able to make use of. It's something you're enjoying, even if it's just listening to us ramble on and take wild tangents and then sooner or later find where we were going in the first place.
Yeah.
So we do appreciate that very, very much, truthfully. And we hope that you continue to enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you ever have any questions or suggestions or comments, you can reach us at our email, which is onlyabagpodcast@gmail.com, or our Instagram, which is at onlyabagpodcast, or at onlyabag.com.
Absolutely. I think that's all three that we have, right?
All right. Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, just making sure. I'm like, do we get anything else recently? I always feel like there's a list of things and they're like, oh, 3, that's so quick.
Yes. And yet we don't maintain our Instagram.
My gosh, we're terrible.
Again, that's something we're working on.
So with that being said, let's jump right into it. But before we jump right into it, I guess, so let's not jump right into it. We're trying this little fun news segment. Not really news. It's just
I forgot about the news segment.
Right? It's not. We're not doing great with this. I promise in a couple months we're gonna have this all figured out, and this will all just be a fun little thing of the past. But I just thought it was interesting because every once in a while there's a little bit of news and we don't really know how to fit it into a podcast episode because we don't want to do an episode about that one tiny thing specifically, but it seems like an interesting piece of information and something you've almost certainly read about, because I've read about it no fewer than 9 times, but that's only because I'm, I guess, subscribed to a lot of travel things, is they have finally reopened the secret path in Florence from the Uffizi to the Pitti Palace, Palazzo di Pitti. I think it's Pitti Palace.
Oh.
But it's across the, what is that called? That wee little bridge.
Ponte Vecchio.
Thank you. I don't think it's called the wee little bridge, the Ponte Vecchio, but there's supposed to be that one of the Medicis, when he was basically going to work and back home,
right.
He feared assassination, so he had this secret path built that was above the
that's right.
Yeah, above the above the Ponte Vecchio, and then this kind of covered thing, and then into the Uffizi, or vice versa. And it was open, and then it was closed for a while, and it basically reopened this past month, I think, sometime in December. And so if you're planning your trip to Florence, you absolutely can take, I think, I'm interrupting myself to say, I think that even actually it used to be Mussolini, basically would show it off to people. There's photos of Mussolini showing off we have this cool secret path.
Like international dignitaries?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It was something that was used it's to show off that we have this cool thing, and everyone's like, is it a cool thing? You're bringing me to Florence to see this? That's a wild thing.
Yeah, that's hecka specific.
So
among all the other cool things that Italy has to offer.
Right.
He was really into that pathway.
I mean, it's a secret pathway. And so I think it's only about 18 euros is the ticket for that, but it includes other things. So it's quite affordable, and it's a fun little addition to the journey. I don't know how, from the photos, I can't tell how interesting and old it is in terms of I know there's a secret passageway tour in Italy that we heard about, and I think it's in the Pitti Palace, maybe it's in the Uffizi. There's some sort of secret passage tour that looks really fascinating. Maybe it's just from one of those is it Robert Langdon movies? Is it the
yeah
the Inferno? I think is one of the ones
yeah.
I'm thinking of. Maybe that's what the secret tours But there's that, and I think this is part of it. You can I think one of these tickets is part of it, basically. So it just now includes this fun little secret passageway.
That's cool.
So if you're planning your trip to Florence and that you like secrets and you like passageways and you like to combine the two, you can do that now.
That's very interesting.
Yeah,
we should do that.
Kind of neat.
Next time we're there.
And again, not enough information for like a whole episode, but just something kind of fun. And now we can dive right in, finally, at last, into dolci di Natale, or desserts, sweets for Christmas or around Christmas. And again, specifically, some of these don't really have anything to do with Christmas. It's just more common in the winter. So this also could just as easily be winter desserts. But
yeah, I think in fact, Happy New Year actually to everybody. If you're listening to this the day it comes out, this is the first day of the new year. We're recording in 2024, and you'll hear this in 2025.
Time travelers. Well, I guess all of our episodes you're hearing in the future from when we record it. So you're always time traveling.
But a lot of these are eaten around New Year's as well. So Christmas, winter holidays, and New Year's.
That makes sense.
Big sweets.
Yeah, times. Big sweet times. Big sweet times? Anyway, so let's get started.
Okay. We have had a coffee, everybody. We're just a little loopy.
We spent the morning cleaning up the house, getting ready for a New Year's Eve party, which will include me, Darcy, my mother, and her partner.
Yes.
And that is it.
So it is a party, but that made us sound really lame a little bit.
Yes, for sure.
It's going to be great. Our living room where we're sitting right now looks very cute. Little table set. We have candles. The Christmas trees looking amazing as always. It's good stuff.
We're very excited.
Okay, let's get into it. Shall we start with, I think, the biggest?
The biggest. Honestly, the most important.
The most important and physically possibly the largest.
Good point.
Of the sweets that we're going to be talking about is the panettone.
It's probably my favorite.
I think it is your favorite.
It's definitely going to be top one. I was going to say top three, but I'm like, there's no other, like 2 and 3 are so far below it that it's not even a thing.
Okay, so can I tell you I was going to say my history with panettone. It's panettone's history. I don't have a personal history with panettone.
I love that.
Okay, so here's some tidbits about
the
panettone.
Official history of panettone.
Yes, the official history. And 2 of the official history pieces are, in my opinion, completely made up. They are kind of myths around panettone. So the first is that at Christmas dinner for an important wealthy person in Italy, the cook, they were making dinner, right, for this big Christmas banquet on Christmas Eve. And the cook burnt the dessert.
Classic.
Yeah. So
I've seen Great British Baking Show. This is what happens every time.
This is it. But unlike at the Great British Baking Show, they had a kitchen helper named Tony.
Of course they did.
Tony came to the rescue. Tony's like, hey, I have some extra sourdough. In some of these stories, he was, what's the word? Like, it's mistranslated to jealously. It's not. It's, like he'd hidden away some sourdough for himself.
Oh my God.
I know.
Like so it's just like a kitchen thief.
Yeah. So he goes and gets his personal stash of sourdough.
Amazing.
Which is, I guess, lievito di madre dough here. It's a mother dough?
Mother. Because they call it the mother in English too. It's like, it's the mother. It's like if you have a sourdough. So it's just here it's like the yeast of the mother.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound amazing. Leavening. Mother's leavening.
Okay. It sounds weird. But anyways.
It works in Italian.
He went and got his sourdough. And he's like, I have a great idea, you guys. Since you guys burnt the dessert, I'm going to save the day. I have this extra sourdough. I'm going to use some sugar and some eggs and some more flour and raisins. And I'm going to make him an amazing dessert. And so he did, and he brought it out as the kitchen helper, not the chef, to the banquet of people. And they were like, Tony, you have saved the day with your dessert, which we will call pan del Tony.
Amazing.
Yeah, like Tony's bread.
I love that.
Essentially, because pane is bread in Italian. So.
And we've seen sometimes like pan being bread, but usually like on a sign or something. Mm-hmm. And we talked about this before, but we're not sure if it's dialect or if it's just slang or if it's a regional difference, or if it's a Latin, or if it's...
That's a good question. I think you could probably safely say it's dialect.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That seems like a big umbrella sometimes.
It really does,
slang can also be a part of dialect.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pan del Tony. The next one is pan de Tony. This one, it doesn't have the L, just so you know.
Is it a different story? Or is
yes, it's a different story, and it has a different name.
It's amazing.
Okay, so...
I love Tony's involved either condition.
Yeah, but it's different Tonys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This one has really specific people which I to me is one of those things, like every great lie is based on a morsel of truth, you know? I don't know if that's the case with this one, but they put some good details in it. So there was a falconer.
Amazing
the first
start.
detail.
Amazing start.
Okay. There's a falconer named Messer Ugetto.
Okay.
And his nickname was Tony.
Phenomenal.
Okay. So Tony loved a baker's daughter. And he thought he should probably win over his love's father so that he could get permission to marry her.
Okay.
So he started working in the bakery. And to further impress his future father-in-law, fingers crossed, he made up this bread. So he invented leavened bread with sugar and raisins and flour and eggs and butter, and he called it panettone.
He named it after himself.
He did, yeah.
Not the person he was trying to impress, or not the person's daughter whose father he was trying to impress.
Right. The woman's name is never mentioned.
I kind of find that fascinating. He's like, I'm trying to impress you, but here's my bread.
Yeah, exactly.
This is for me.
And the other interesting thing, which is, again, a weird detail, I don't understand why his nickname was Tony. No part of his name had Tony in it. He was just
Doesn't matter.
Call me
It's
Tony.
just Tony. I love it.
And okay, so his last name is Ugetto, Ughetto, and that means raisin in Milanese dialect.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Uvetta. Okay, I can see that. I can totally see that.
Which is another reason I think it's made up, because...
Oh, yeah, they're just making... Yeah, for sure.
His name's like essentially Messer Raisin.
Well, that's, I think, the joke would come from the town Savannah. Mm-hmm. And then, like, not even the joke, but it was like, I think people were asking, like, how was it originally named? And it was like, oh, this young woman fell overboard. And they're like, save Anna. And everyone's like, that's not at all how
Oh, my goodness. I've
Savannah
never heard
named.
that.
Yeah. That's like one of the apocryphal stories of how Savannah was first named. So I think that, I think it's kind of like that, where it's like, it just...
Yeah.
Somebody made it.
It sounds good, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think if you've never had panettone, it is as you mentioned, leavened bread which means with yeast rather than like baking soda, baking powder. Mm-hmm. And it has candied fruit peels. Typically, it's going to be lemon and cedro, which is like a very large lemon. You'll see it if you go to like Calabria. I mean, technically, there might be a few cedro trees on like the Amalfi Coast, but they're more common, I think, farther south.
Does it always have cedro?
I think the three are cedro, lemon, and orange peel.
Oh, okay.
Candied, because
and raisins.
And raisins. And if you're looking at a panettone, the green peel is cedro, not lime. I think it's easy to, I mean, not that a lime has that thick a peel anyway, but it's easy to think that might be a lime peel, but it's a different sort of fruit. Mm-hmm. It also has, I think, some sort of aromi, like it's what it's called, the aromi, like flavorings. I don't know what it is, but sometimes, and they all have a very consistent flavor. It's like that, I don't know if it's quite the orange blossom, but
I think
they all
it's
have
orange
something.
blossom.
Yeah, that would make sense given the other flavors in the panettone. And I want to say it has butter, because a lot of the recipes have butter.
It definitely has butter,
which is super rare, as we've mentioned, for Italy, but not so much for northern Italy. It's just super rare for anywhere that isn't northern Italy. So it's a very decadent mix between a bread and a cake, I would say.
Yeah, it is definitely a bread.
Well, I think, like in the sense because it's leavened with yeast, but it's quite sweet for bread.
Yeah, it's definitely sweet for bread. But if you pull it open, it's definitely a bread texture rather than a cake.
Yeah, I think almost if you've never had panettone before, it's closest I think to like brioche or challah.
Yes.
I think that's a good way.
I would say brioche.
Brioche, like a sweet brioche is probably a big way. And it has a classic muffin top, I would say.
Did you know that the modern day shape and sort of muffin top and the wrapper situation, like the classic look of the panettone, is from the 1920s?
That makes sense. I mean, not specifically the 20s, but that it's newer, because I was kind of thinking did you find out why?
I think they were just trying to class it up.
Make it look interesting?
Make it look different. Yeah, exactly. Because before, so the actual probably likely origins of it are when people had bread with raisins and candied fruits and nuts in it. Again, possibly medieval times, but just, wealthier people would have an actual loaf of bread stuffed with things on their table. And so from there, I think there was a... 1700s. Anyways, there's a 19th century. So 1800s. People started actually writing down recipes, and it transitioned from definitely more of an actual bread to a more leavened, light, sweet situation. And then into the 20th century, it became kind of what we know today.
And because I know that we've mentioned this, I think, on the Chiquitera episode, possibly. There was a dessert that we picked up, I think, from the grocery store. But it's a lot like panettone, but it's like if you took panettone, which is quite light, as you mentioned, and airy, and just squished it down, basically, like took all the air out of it. And it was also kind of just the tops. It's kind of like in the States, well, you can just get muffin tops now, or cupcake tops, or whatever they're called, and that's it. It's not like the rest of the cupcake. It was a lot like that. It was just the top. It was like the top of a panettone, squished down and condensed, and it had the same flavor. It had the same stuffing of not stuffing. It was full of the candied peels and raisins. But it was an interesting thing because it made me think that like the flavor profile might be quite common. Because even when we were looking up stuff for this episode, again in the South, panettone is common because panettone is like common everywhere in Italy, but a lot of the other ones are more regional, I would say. Like there's probably
a lot of the other things we're going to talk about.
Well, yes, but I think a lot of the other similar flavor profile things to the panettone are going to be like around Genoa or around Cinque Terre or around Liguria, or wherever it is, or Lombardia, but not necessarily in the South. Because I think even just talking about the classing it up, though, it's interesting. We were bored. I think not bored. We needed to take a walk the day after Christmas or 2 days after Christmas, and we went around and everybody had the panettone tins and panettone boxes in the trash, like they're thrown away. And they come in, to be very clear, they come in like, I mean, you can get them at like Costco in paper, but a lot of the nicer ones come in a metal tin. So it's like, it's supposed to be a really nice gift because they cost, I think the factory produced ones that are like, what would you compare it to? Like the €5 panettones, like in the States, what would we have that's similar in terms of like, you can get a really nice, like, I'm just thinking like the pecan pie or something like that, or apple pie you get from like, I don't know, the freezer section would kind of be like the factory produced,
right?
And then there's the high quality handcrafted bakery made. And I think the difference, and it's kind of a huge difference because you can get a €5 one in any grocery store, or you can go to your local bakery and get one for like 35 to 50 euros more if you're in a bigger city. So it always makes me think of like I think there's some TV shows watching that took place in Japan, and they were talking about the culture of giving fruit.
Right.
Because it's grown for flavor, not necessarily for durability. So a lot of times they don't make it to maturity. So they end up dying for whatever it is, and it takes a lot of time to tend it. So it's like giving a really nice piece of fruit does cost $40, $50, $100 for a piece of fruit. And I think the panettone is a lot like that, where it's like, it's a nice gift sometimes. It's an €80 panettone. It's like, wow, you love your family, because that's only going to last the day. But it was kind of fun walking around and seeing everybody's, I don't know, I was taking pictures. I was like, oh, these are to explore for next winter.
Yeah.
Because now it's not even too late, but it's like the day after Christmas, all the panettone goes on sale. It's like if it was...
Or it's already bought up. Like we went to I guess it was Christmas Eve. We went to a coffee shop. What am I talking about? A cafe? A bar. There we go. That's
but it's more a pastry place than a bar.
Yes, thank you. And they had 100 or more.
Yeah, easily.
Panettone. And then we went the next day and they had...
Christmas morning is the next day.
Christmas morning, thank you. And they had like 6 left of their ultra fancy ones.
Yeah, and I think one original flavor. Original flavor being like the classic candy peel, but they had the specialty like lemon and poppy seed just for the holidays. And some of them too, they get kind of like... And we'll stop at the panettone in a second, guys. Don't worry. But they do get kind of weird. Like, I don't like the ones with cream inside. They have these like cream filling ones.
No, I find those odd.
Yeah, but depending on what you like if you like chocolate chips, there's some with chocolate chips. There's some with other candied fruits in it. There's some with, I don't know. There's like, they kind of get creative. Like nuts you can find sometimes in it. You can find sometimes with just sprinkle type things on top. Not sprinkles, I guess, but like, what are those called? Those little white sugary sprinkles, basically.
I think sprinkles.
Yeah.
I mean, it's classic to have the what is it, confectioner sugar?
Yeah, powdered sugar on top. Yeah.
A lot of the ones you get from the grocery store will come with a packet of sugar, or not the panettone. I guess I'm thinking of Pandoro, which we'll talk about.
Which we'll talk about in just a second.
But they'll come with a packet of powdered sugar that you shake or you pour into the bag that the panettone comes in once you get it out of the box, and you shake it around.
Which is kind of a wild thing to first do. I think the last thing that just for interest on the panettone is just because it is a fascinating thing, because it is, if you've seen the Great British Baking Show, then you're familiar with the idea of it, because it is hung upside down. And as you mentioned, that's only since the 20s?
I think so. I mean, I imagine that between the 19th century and the 20th century, there was a transition, it seems like, from a a more dense
into, like,
loaf of bread
Okay.
into a more of a cakey bread situation.
Because the thing is, it's such a tall loaf. It's like about like a foot tall, give or take. What is that? Like some amount of centimeters. Let's just say 10, 15 centimeters tall. So then 15 seems like a lot. Let's say 10 centimeters tall.
10 centimeters is like as big as my hand.
So let's say 15 centimeters tall.
Okay.
So basically they would fall though. So if you hung them upside down, then they wouldn't fall and crush itself. So you get this really nice airy loaf, which is what also you got that sort of that very the shape on top, that sort of very characteristic shape on top. But I also wanted to mention too that one of the interesting things is panettone, just by the way that it kind of creates that little seal on the outside in terms of like, I don't know, between the crust and the sugar or whatever it is, it almost like air seals it. But panettone can last quite a while, usually like 8 or 9 months from when it's baked to when it's quote unquote bad. But I only say that because a lot of times, for instance, I'm thinking like Luigi's uncle, as he explains, he'll like after Christmas, he'll go to the stores and buy up all the panettone, which is like now it's like instead of €5, it's 2 for $5 or whatever it is, or 3 for $5. And he'll just keep them in the garage, and they're good for months and months and months, and until next.
And those probably do have some preservatives in them,
Yes,
if they're the grocery store ones. But even so,
but even the ones that are not the grocery store will last a really long time. And then, well, I mean, you really only need it to last until Easter because you get the Columbo, which is the exact same thing in the shape of a dove, which is a ridiculous
similar.
thing.
It has like you said, like the sprinkles on top.
Yeah, which is still like we'll get into that in the weird dove-shaped food episode. Okay. So, but you mentioned Pandoro as well.
Yeah, Pandoro used to be my favorite over panettone because I'm not the biggest fan of raisins or candied fruit.
There's a weird way to say you very much dislike raisins and you do not care for candied fruit.
Yes, but I've come around. We've eaten several panettone this season that I like the candied fruit.
I think it's like candied pear that you like. I don't think it's the candied citrus peels you like very much.
Yes,
and the raisins, you still absolutely despise them.
I really do.
Which is weird, living in a country of grapes.
Yeah, well, I like grapes. I just don't like raisins. But I do love dried strawberries.
Oh,
no, what?
What?
Dried cranberries.
Oh, I was like, do we have dried strawberries?
Dried cranberries. Those are amazing.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I have a very discerning dried fruit palate.
Clearly.
So Pandoro, it has a different recipe than panettone, but only slightly. I think of it as a panettone without fruit in it, or nuts. It's just a white, cakey bread dough, essentially. And it's always in the shape of an 8-pointed star.
Yeah.
Which is fun.
It's from Veneto or Venice, which is interesting.
So the panettone is from Milan, right? Okay, and the Pandoro is from Venice.
And it's interesting because you mentioned it has a very similar dough, and I think a lot of people do view the Pandoro, like the panettone without like stuff inside. And the only reason I'd ever like caution people is because it is a slightly different dough. And I think pretty much everyone we've talked to prefers the dough of the panettone to the dough of the Pandoro.
And you can sometimes get the panettone like senza canditi without dried fruit.
Or raisins.
Right, exactly.
I think like at least the one we have is called pan de neve, which is just snow bread.
Yeah.
And it's just it's the panettone dough without anything in it, which is, again...
And did it come with a little packet of sugar to put on it?
It did indeed.
Okay, but we never use that.
No.
I don't like it. They put that aromi in it.
It's a fake vanilla flavoring they put in a lot of it, which is just not... I mean, I think we did the first time thinking, oh, this is fun. And it's just like, oh, that's not nice at all.
Yeah, I didn't like that part. But I like the cake part, the bread.
Yeah.
Bread cake.
The bread cake. And those are two of the most popular, most famous, I think, dolci, the desserts you're going to find in Italy. And you'll find them pretty much from the end of November, early December, all the way through, at the very least, the end of December, maybe a little longer. But honestly, like mid-January, you probably won't find panettone in the store anymore.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's a weird
It'll
thing.
be in the grocery stores longer than it will be in bakeries.
Yes,
because I think they get bought up.
Well, I was going to say, and bakeries do one run. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes like a larger... whatchamacallit, like a larger factory might do a couple runs, but a bakery will only do the single run. So it is something, if you do like panettone, I say this because like people like my grandfather will go to Costco when it's in season and buy like, 30 of them. And they're not cheap at Costco. They're like €10 each at Costco. And you get this like, they're not mini, but they're like...
Oh, they are slightly smaller, aren't they, when we've seen them?
It's like here they're all a kilo and then there's like 700 grams or something. It's like, oh, that's not the same size. And it's not, I mean, they're good, but he'll like, store them for a while because that's the only time they're there. And then, he has to wait till next year. So it's one of those little funny things about like, for me at least, it's one of my favorite Italian desserts are only available in literally this month and a half. And even the bakery you mentioned, they do amazing gelato. But as soon as it hits like I think October 1st,
Oh yeah,
that's
it's not gelato season anymore.
It is done. Yeah, it's like, and they'll close up the gelato season and put a little like almost like a board across all of the pans, and that's where they have all the pastries. So it's a bit of a it's like all chocolates now and all. I mean, he does, to be fair, this guy does amazing pastries. It's a shame we don't live anywhere near it, but it's very lovely.
I will say two things. One is that I think in several episodes we've warned people about how gelato is very much a seasonal thing, and I don't know if it's more of a recent trend or it just happens that we've been in Rome in the winterish time. But I know when we were in Rome about a month ago, they did have gelato. I mean, obviously the gelato shops are still up and running, and several of them are doing like wintertime flavors. So it may be that in big cities you can still get gelato, but certainly where we are in small towns, it's not gelato season right now.
And I think that I mean, if you're definitely in big cities, but if you are coming in the winter, like if you're going to a ski resort town, for instance, I find it very unlikely you'll find gelato.
I would agree.
Just because it's in terms of it being very small and in terms of it being very out of season.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think big cities, you shouldn't have too much of an issue. So what should we talk about next?
Well, one other quick thing I just thought of. It's not that important. It's just interesting to me. So I talked about how the Pandoro has 8 points. And the way people cut it is you cut off a point for each person.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. I don't know if that's intentional. It's just kind of how people tend to cut them. But then I remembered that anytime you and I cut a panettone, and I think we do it because that's how they've been served to us, you cut a panettone into essentially 8 slices.
Yeah.
When it's the Italian size, like we were talking about, it's slightly larger than the ones I think we've seen in the US. But it's like a standard slice size, and I just think that's interesting.
Did you know why? It's because the pizza only has 8 slices. I'm kidding, I have no idea. But, it's like, you're like, okay, I can see where you're going with that.
You should make up a story, Nathaniel.
I really should.
Put Tony in the name. People will believe it.
Tony's Pizza. And that's how we have Tom Pizza. Pizza Tony. I don't know. This is sounding awful. We should probably keep going.
Okay.
But you're right. So what's next? What should we talk about next?
Okay. Do you want to talk about Torone?
Oh, yes.
I don't have that much to say about it, except that
it's
it's a pretty big classic for wintertime.
It is.
I'm going to turn my note sheet now.
And it's called, I believe it's called nougat. Nougat.
How
do you pronounce it?
Why'd you say that so weird?
I don't know how to pronounce it. It's
nougat.
too many U's. Nougat. I don't know how to pronounce that
I think
word.
it has one U.
N-O-U-G...
N-O-U-G-H.
I don't think there's an H in it. Is there an H in it?
I think nougat.
I don't know. It's like the British spelling I have in my head, and I'm like, it's nougat. How do you guys pronounce it? I've been in this country too long. I see all those vowels, and I lose my place.
I think that actually, I'm going to get this wrong, because people don't really know where it came from. It's just because it's so old, I think. But I think it's the Greek word. No. It's a Arabic word, potentially, that I am not going to attempt to say, because I know I get it wrong. But Italians had a word that sounded a bit like nougat, and then the French took that word and made it French sounding, and that's where we got nougat from.
But they weren't the T at the end, were they? Nougat.
Nougat. I don't know. I don't speak French either.
I know.
I just know that's vaguely where it came from. That's the name.
Okay. So take it away. Tell us about nougat.
So Torone is nougat, made with egg whites and honey and sugar and almonds. And I always thought it was hazelnuts, but the original recipe is almonds.
So we've had some with hazelnuts.
I feel like here a lot of people use hazelnuts in there.
Let's say that weird little rice paper.
Yeah.
Not weird. It's just, it like actually helps a lot because it's like on top and bottom, and it prevents your hands from getting all sticky.
And I didn't get that far down the rabbit hole of researching it, but I don't think all Torone has that. That might be a regional thing, because there are regional flavors.
For sure. And I think it's more of just like a less a flavor and more of a, again, just it's easier to make it like that. And
yeah, I guess
to cut it like that.
Recipe-wise, that might be something here.
Did you find out in your research, because some of the ones we've had are like rock solid.
Yeah, well, there's the soft kind and the hard kind.
Oh, well, there you go. Because we've had some kind which is like,
invented
by dentists, I think, to get more business.
Yeah, bad dentist, like not bad dentists who are
trying to
scheming.
Drum up business.
Yeah.
And then you have the kind that's soft, and I don't know, it's not my favorite, I'll be honest. Like some of it's really good. Sometimes you have a piece and you're like, that's weirdly really good. And then it's like, and I think honestly, like probably the rest of the desserts we'll mention, there's some that are like amazing, and then there's all the other ones which are just like, that's okay. And I think a lot of these...
I like a nice soft torone. that has simple but nice flavors.
I feel that. Yeah.
Not one that's going to break your teeth.
Like lemon or hazelnut.
I love a lemon
But the lemon
one.
ones are really good. Yeah.
Yes. And I think in Rome is known for ones that I think they're like dipped in chocolate on one side. I know.
Interesting. And they come in a bar, like usually you find them in paper boxes in a bar about a foot long, I would say. Again, I'm not even going to attempt centimeters on that one because I was so off the last time. But if you're not from America, just imagine what American would say a foot would be. That's about right. Even if you have no frame of reference, just be like, I can guess. It's about the length of a standard foot. I have absolutely no idea where we get the foot terminology from.
It's about the length of your forearm.
Sure. So it's about the length of your forearm is this torrone. And yeah, I mean, it's basically, again, same thing. You can find nicer ones at bakeries and pastry places, but 9 times out of 10, you're going to find really nice ones at the grocery store.
Yeah. And according to the internet, so torrone is everywhere, and it's so old that it's
Ubiquitous.
Exactly. And it's, there's something very similar. It's actually called, I think it's called like torron in Spain. And it's basically the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah. And in fact, the origins of Italian torrone might be that. Or they might have just kind of both come from someone else to both of those countries. Where was I going with this? Oh, it's so ubiquitous in Italy that it's just Italian. It's not from any specific part.
Region.
Right.
Yeah.
But in Cremona, some people say that they have the best torrone in all of Italy. And I don't know if that's true, but they do have a torrone festival in November.
Wild.
I know.
Weird.
Yeah, fun.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
And
So go do that if you're going to be here in November.
I was going to say, just also in terms of if you're looking for gifts, if you are coming in the winter, a panettone is a difficult gift to bring back for anybody. It is. You can find mini ones, but again, those are only going to be typically like factory-made mini ones. You're not going to probably find an artisanal mini panettone and pandoro.
Even so, it's a lot of space to put in your luggage.
It is, because we've brought back panettone and pandoro before, and it's like it's a commitment. But the torrone make a really nice gift. I mean, again, for somebody who is not like, I don't have dental work. I feel like when people say, oh, it messes up my dental work. I don't feel like I have dental work, but I'm like, I definitely don't want to eat torrone because it'll make me have dental work kind of thing. So, but it's a really nice gift. And if you're looking, I say this too, because I know a lot of times people will post on, again, subreddit, like the Italy travel subreddit, things like that. Like, I'm looking for a gift to bring. I don't know what to bring. I'm going in the winter. Torrone is a great thing. It lasts forever. I mean, if it looks damaged, it still tastes exactly the same. But nobody wants a squished panettone, but like a squished pandoro, you wouldn't really be able, or squished torrone, you wouldn't really be able to tell.
No, it's a great it's like a perfect stocking stuffer size.
Yes,
as well.
That's a really good point. And you get one. We always like to. Our little secret is a lot of the packaging in Italy will have English on it. Not all the packaging, but stuff like panettone and stuff like that will have like English written on it because it's made for many markets. Like, it's made for France and for Spain and for Italy and for UK. And our favorite little thing is trying to find one without any English on it because it feels more authentic, even though it might be like you might still get it down. Like I think we get like the Kimbo coffee here, Kimbo, which is from Naples, but you can find it at Home Goods in the States. So it's kind of like, but it's still like, but if we bring it to somebody, it seems like a really nice gift. So that's our little secret. You can take that. You can steal that for free.
You can have that for free.
Yeah, we're not even going to charge you for it. And continuing this litany of slew of pan names, Pan, again, really popular name for bread in Italy, is the pan forte. I don't know.
It's a popular name for bread. It's the word for bread.
Well, it's missing the E. They forgot the E on this. So I really do wonder if it's like Latin or something. We should learn Latin. So I'm apologizing now for the paper sounds. We don't have like iPads or something fancy to like look at this information on. Also, neither of us are very good at remembering things. So it helps to write things down and also not hit the mic stand again. So if you caught, that was a cut there because Nathaniel hit the mic stand with a piece of paper.
I think what we need is what were we saying? The little music stand holders that kind of clip onto the mics.
Absolutely. So you can like turn the page. We need one of those little sticks to turn the page with too.
Like they have on trumpets and things for marching bands. That's what we need.
We should see if we can. Is this like cheap? I don't know.
Probably
so
not.
pan forte.
Yeah, tell me about it.
It is actually a fun one. You and I have really quite enjoyed pan forte, I think. And it's from Siena. It's sort of it's one of those ones that people are pretty sure it's from Tuscany in general. And it was popularized in Tuscany, and Siena sort of like, that's our thing. And so now like Siena is I don't know the birthplace, again, without getting the history. A lot of these things don't really have a history. It's like people are just making stuff, but it is definitely more popular in Siena than anywhere else, and to the point where they've also sort of like to dictate how pan forte should be made, to the point of, because there are 17 wards in Siena, different neighborhoods, they think that the pan forte should only have 17 ingredients.
Oh my goodness.
I know, it's kind of an interesting like drawing the lines.
That's so Italian.
Well, yeah. And there's a lot of things like it. There's a lot of German. It's called like Lebkuchen. I don't know. Sure, that sounds about right. It's stuff like, it's a German, sweet, a German dessert, but it's basically the same thing. It's going to be, or the panforte at least, is going to be dried fruits, nuts, a little bit of flour, honey, and then that's it.
They don't all have flour though, right?
And that's what I was curious about, because you and I have found a number of them without flour, and it's actually, again, mainly for people who are gluten-free or can't have gluten or are celiacs or intolerant. There are a variety that don't have flour because it doesn't seem to be the most important ingredient. I mean, it just seems to be used as a binder. Like, even though some people bake them, some of them don't look baked.
Some people bake them?
I
thought it was just kind of squished together.
And then
which
sold
sounds
as a
gross, but it's very nice.
Well, it's like that thing we had in Rome, which is like all the fruits. Yeah.
That thing we don't know what the name of it is?
Exactly, and it was baked.
So I just want to quickly set the scene for you guys because we keep saying thing. We walked past a bakery in Rome, and there was, the big window where you can see into the kitchen, and there were several, big pans of sweets that were cooling.
Yeah.
And so we went in, we spotted one we wanted, and the one that we wanted wasn't on display. So we asked, like, can we have that one in the window? So she went back into the kitchen and picked out what we wanted, which was like a giant.
We had to go outside to point at which one.
Yeah, we had to go outside to point at the one in the window. And it was like a 2-handful dense loaf it was like a bread cake thing stuffed with nuts and fruit. It was amazing.
Yeah, and it's also kind of nice because she's putting it away, but then she also hands it to us. She's like, no, feel it. It's nice. And I was like, oh, it's really heavy and warm. She's like, yeah, right? It was kind of one of those like Hallmark moments where like nobody actually like points out something in the window and then goes inside and gets it. And then we did, and it felt really lovely, actually. So pan forte.
It's very similar. Yeah.
It is very similar.
So
no, it comes from pan pepato, which is pepper bread. And so the pan forte, it doesn't, I always thought the forte, I really should have set this up better. Pan forte means strong bread in Italian. So I always assumed it referred to the fact that like when you say a strong beer, sometimes it doesn't necessarily refer to the alcohol content. It's like more about the fact that it is loaded with nutrients, sort of like a Guinness or something, like a dark beer, or the like I know that there was something I just read like literally 2 days ago. It was talking about the people who built the pyramids. It was like they were all given like 3 to 5 liters of beer a day because it was so chock full of vitamins and minerals and like calories basically.
Wow, okay.
And what even like all the monks who made beer, it was like a big part of that was just because it was like liquid bread basically. So I assumed like it was a pan forte was just sort of the same thing. Like, oh, this is like really stodgy and like, loaded with, this, you could eat this in the winter, like a slice of it and you're good all day. No, it's because it was made with pepper and it was like apparently spicy for all the Italians. So it's no longer made with pepper, which is interesting because even in
like black pepper or hot pepper.
I think black pepper. I was looking it up and it kept saying pepper. And I couldn't figure out where. And I'm assuming it's black pepper only because in Umbria, there were a couple sweetbreads made with pepper.
Yeah, that's true.
And then that one time in in Siena, we got something. And I asked her what was inside. And she did. She ran through like a list of fruits and then hit black pepper. And I was like whole black pepper. And she's like, yeah. And I was like, okay. It was delicious, but it was like, yeah, chunks of black pepper. I guess, which makes sense because it's kind of like, again, if you're inspired by, I'm thinking like chai or something like that, where it's, you have cinnamon, you have clove, you have star anise, and then you have black pepper. So it could be something like that. So that's essentially where it's from. And it's again, as we're just talking about gifts, we're talking about Pandorano so much, but pan forte is a lovely little gift. They're quite small, a couple inches round.
I would say it's like the size of a brie. A whole round of brie.
It's a great example. Yeah. And you can find it in the grocery stores. Again, they're very traditional in Siena. So it's basically, you can find it at bakeries, you can find it at grocery stores. Weirdly, again, this is where it's like one of those things where things are quite regional because although Florence is the capital of Tuscany, it was super difficult to find a pan forte in Tuscany. And you'd think like, I don't know, I mean, I know again, things are quite regional, but I'm like, that's in the same region and it's not a thing outside of Siena. So, but in Siena, it's quite famous and it's everywhere. And it's honestly quite delicious too. I mean, it sounds kind of like a fruitcake, I think, the first few times I heard about it. I was like,
but it's not. It's so good. And I don't like fruitcake.
No, and it's basically figs, nuts, dried fruit, flour, honey, and then spices like, and I'm assuming, again, cinnamon and the like, not necessarily. I mean, it could be like bay leaf or something, because I think some had like oloro in it, or bay leaf in it originally. But yeah, so that's kind of a traditional dessert that you're only really going to find in Siena.
Yeah, and speaking of Siena and gifting, if you happen to be in Siena, it is a really great place to buy little edible gifts. The grocery stores. I mean, I think we say this all the time. Getting a edible gift at a grocery store in Italy, great idea.
Yeah.
But I have to say that the couple grocery stores we happened to go to inside of the historical center of Siena had great gifting things, local foods, really interesting, cool stuff that are really nice for gifts.
And as we mentioned in the Siena episode a year ago, I think, there's something called the Consorzio
Agricolo di Siena,
or
something like that. Yeah,
it's the like consortium of Sienese farms, and essentially it looks like a grocery store, but it almost looks like a gourmet grocery store.
It kind of looks like if a museum shop were a local foods grocery store.
And not everything is local, because they have like Pepsi in there, so I don't think like everything is local. They have like, I think also like Heinz ketchup. Which is like weird. Like they have like a little like, oh, if you also need some just random bits and bobs, but they have a bunch of local wine, olive oil, jams, jellies, spices, breads, panforte. I think a lot of stuff's in jars, just like things that are under oil or things that are preserved. And so if you're in Siena, again,
and so many good bakeries. If you're somebody who can eat flour, likes sweets and baked goods.
Oh my God, yeah,
so good.
And I don't know if there's any in December in Siena, like specifically to go to. There probably is. It's a still popular place. I know people go in the summer for the Palio, the horse race. But if you're in Italy and you're coming around and you're going around Italy for the winter, and Siena's on your list, definitely consider stocking up on either food for yourself or for gifts, because it's kind of a special little thing, especially when it just comes from one specific town in Italy, rather than like, I don't know, you can find it at Costco in the States kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's next?
Let's talk about strufoli.
That's a weird one.
I know, but it's so fun. I don't actually really like it.
No, me either.
If I'm being honest. But it is so fun looking. So strufoli is this really weird Campania dessert. It's Napolitano, right? Or is
I think it's just Campania, yeah, okay. from the region of Campania.
Which is where we are. And so a lot of people bring these to holiday get-togethers. And it's essentially a bunch of marble-sized balls of dough that have been fried. Each of them is fried, right?
Yes.
And then so each of them is fried, and then they're mixed around in honey, and then kind of formed into either a ring shape or just a general kind of cake loaf shape.
Yep.
And then usually sprinkled with multicolored sprinkles or candied fruit sometimes.
And then somehow it gets hard as a rock.
Yes.
And it's like, because the first time, the first few times you're going to see them, you're like, oh, you could just pick them apart. It'd be so fun. No, you need a knife, and you need like a hacksaw or a sawzall.
It solidifies.
It is wild. I don't understand it at all. And it doesn't taste, no offense to this beautiful thing, it does. At the beginning of this episode, I mentioned like some of these, like you're going to have a really good version, and you're like, wow. And then you have every other version, you're like, that is garbage. This is one I am still looking for a good version.
Yeah.
It's just, it's not like, for me, right? Honey, yes, check. Fried, 100%.
Fried dough, yeah, amazing.
I'm from the South in both countries. Yes, 100%. Like, how could we go wrong with this already?
Sprinkles?
Sprinkles, easy. But then it's like, what did you fry this? It's just, I don't, and I'm like, I think it has the bones of something that could be really good. If it's like, what is the, you really like it, the French one?
Croquembouche.
Croquembouche. It feels like a weird version of croquembouche. Like croquembouche has the little thing. They're baked, I guess, instead of fried, but they're filled with custard. They're arranged into a tower. They're drizzled with chocolate. They nailed it.
Or just sugar, like caramelized sugar.
Right. What am I? I guess that makes more sense. In my head, it's chocolate, but I guess it is. Man, I should have watched the Great British Baking Show before this, or other stuff. I totally get my baking information from other things too. And no, but I think that's this strufoli.
Strufoli.
In my head, it's stromboli all of a sudden.
It's also got a great name, strufoli.
I know, and it
looks so fun, but it's just not great when we've had it.
Yeah, and it's some people make it at home, and a lot of times, unfortunately, I think the worst part is you can get it from the store super easily, and it's just not good from the store. Like it's just like, oh, that's not amazing. So I don't know. Which is all to say, you can definitely try it, and people like it. To be clear.
Oh yeah.
It's popular. it's just one of those that we have not. We don't fully understand the appeal.
It's almost to me like Americans and fruitcake. Like everybody brings it. Like there's always one,
Sure,
at a holiday gathering, but it's always the one that has some left.
Yes.
Like everybody brings fruitcake to some gathering, but only like your grandma has a slice and nobody else eats any.
Yeah, so that's how like if people have to be polite, they're like, oh, I should have a piece.
And then it just gets left over.
And I want to think like originally it was better, but I'm also kind of curious if it's one of those things like, again, no disrespect to the strudel, but I'm like, is it just that like better desserts were introduced to Campania and they're like, oh my God, like what were we doing? Like I'm like, if it's one of those things, if it's kind of like, this is amazing. Panettone, you said, this is really good. So I'm kind of curious if it's just like, like, oh man, we were not killing it.
Well, it's okay. So whenever I was looking it up, it's from Campania, but I think a lot of people make it in Naples, and Naples has some great little desserts. Like one that we've talked about, which is a year-round thing. It's the shell sfogliatella, yeah, which we can't eat because it's made with lard. And so is this actually.
Oh, well, there you go.
Connecting dots.
Is that why it doesn't taste good?
Maybe. Well, it's also this one. I think I can't see my notes now. I don't want to make noise, but I think it's made with anise seed. And also lard.
Because I could see the anise seed. That might be interesting.
But I don't like that flavor
you do not.
either.
You hate licorice.
It's got lard, meaty flavor.
And the licorice. Yeah, not a fan.
But the sfogliatella, people love, and you always liked it. I find it to be a weird texture because it's like
shards of glass in your mouth?
Yeah. But they had that going on, and also strufoli.
Well, it's also like the baba is from Naples.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. You took a piece of bread and you soaked it in rum. You put some whipped cream on top of it. Brilliant creation. Even without the whipped cream. Amazing creation. Like all the other, I think, pastries from the area, the pasteria.
I almost had it. I can taste it. I can see it.
I know, right? Pastiera?
Yeah. Pastiera.
Thank
nice.
You. The pastiera, like all these other things that are really yummy, really delicious, really, not the sanguinaccio. Yeah, not a fan.
It's chocolate and pig's blood, if you were wondering.
Yeah. So there's a lot of other traditional things around this time.
Actually, so you can go to strufoli.com or strufoli.it. I can't remember which it is. Amazing website. I went there for some research for this episode.
It's not been updated since 2002 when they first discovered websites.
But they said, I think among like the first two sentences that they list sfogliatella and strufoli as being more famous than baba. I just wanted to put that in there.
Yeah, I can see that though. Because baba really, like, anytime we hear it, it's kind of like caciocavallo. There's one time on the TV show White Collar, we heard Mozzie talking about caciocavallo. And I'm like, who knows about caciocavallo outside of like Italy? And I think so. I think like that's truthfully, I think we've seen sometimes in New York City, but like baba, I feel like it's a little bit more rare. Like cannoli, I think is one of the most famous Italian, Sicilian obviously, but like Italian, exports as far as pastries goes. But like a baba, I'd be like, anytime I see that in the States, I feel like I'm like, whoa, deep cut.
Plus people usually call it rum baba.
Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah, it's just baba. It also has rum in it, but you don't need to say that.
That's a good point. Like that though. This is alcohol cake.
Yeah, well, you should say that if you're giving it
to, for somebody who should not be drinking alcohol.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. So next,
yeah,
I figured we would, instead of something solid, let's go with something liquid. What a weird segue. Yep. I know. I didn't love it either. But because we're sitting here shivering, we don't want to turn the stove on. It's going to make too much noise, and then the plinking of the pellets and this and that. And I'm reading this thing that says hot chocolate. That's my next note. And I'm like, that's what we should talk about next. Hot chocolate. And it's a very small, whatchamacallit, it's a little small subject, little topic here before we get to the next desserts. But I wanted to mention, because it is different than hot chocolate in the States.
At least here in the South, it's different.
Well, here in Italy, it's different.
But we had it in, not Siena. What was the other town? San Gimignano. And it was more liquid.
Well, yes, but it's still thick.
Yes. Okay.
So, and I think that's the big thing. It's thick, hot chocolate, and without getting too deep into it, because again, it's one of those things. It's hot chocolate. Like y'all have probably had hot chocolate before. If you've only had Swiss Miss, I do urge you to try something else. But Swiss Miss is, to be fair, really good. I used to just like eat packets of Swiss Miss. Anyway, terrible for like everything, but really good if you're just like a little packet of Swiss Miss in your mouth. So apparently started in Colombia. Had no idea. Hot chocolate. And popularized spread throughout South America. And then the Spanish, just, being cool guys, brought it back to Europe. And
maybe we shouldn't call them cool guys in this context.
Like anyone's called them cool guys in this context.
They were there, and then they went home, and they brought with them hot chocolate.
Well, chocolate.
Chocolate.
And so it was originally made, well, I guess hot chocolate, water, chocolate, wine, and spices.
Oh.
I know. And weirdly, in a rare victory, the British apparently are the ones who substituted water for milk.
What?
And I'm like, the British? So yeah, according to like sources everywhere, the
Wow.
British decided to add milk instead of water because they wanted something more decadent. Wild, love that. Great
Okay.
decision. The Austrians thought, how do we improve upon this?
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to thicken it. They did so with eggs. I think it's just the egg yolk. I've done this before.
Huh.
It's kind of like anything else that you use egg yolk to thicken. You have to take a little bit of the hot chocolate out. You mix it into the egg yolk so it doesn't curdle or doesn't cook, I guess. It doesn't
Right.
curdle, but it cooks or to prevent it from cooking. And then you slowly add it back into the pot of hot chocolate and it'll thicken it up
It
really
cooks
nicely.
without scrambling.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's what it is. Thank you. I knew it was something. There's no chunks of egg. And you can't really tell. It gets quite velvety, it gets really smooth, and it gets really thick. The Italians were into that big time. But from the very beginning, it seems to be, and this is what I wanted to research, and it was like a silly amount of research for something so small, but as you mentioned, hot chocolate in Italy is thick. And it's predominantly thick because of cornstarch and or potato starch, cornstarch being the more traditional ingredient. But, traditional is such a weird word here because obviously all of this is from South America, corn and chocolate. So it's like traditional only since, as you mentioned, like you were talking about the history of panettone being like 1500s, has been 1600s. So traditional is kind of a funky word to use around, something, the other food being 3,000 years old. So yeah, it's basically originally would have been probably used egg or cornstarch. But now, still today, you can basically find it in every single cafe, bar. A lot of them are going to be out of a packet. I think it's called a chobar. Is that what it is? CIOBAR?
Oh.
Like chocolate bar, I'm assuming. It's like a pun, I think. But there's those little packets you can get at the grocery store. You just add milk or whatever it is. And some people use water, which is just not the same. Again, if you've never had hot chocolate with milk, by the way, which I'm talking to Nathaniel, who I think up until like 11, I've never had it with with milk because my parents were like, no, we're using water. It's free out of the tap. So I never had it with milk. And I think we actually my dad took us to a bar, a cafe, like up in upstate New York, and they made it in with the milk frother. And I know it was just, and milk, and it was just like the totally different thing. They still use a packet of Swiss Miss, don't get me wrong, but it was like, with milk, and it was a total game changer. And so hot chocolate here is, as you mentioned in San Gimignano, it was thicker. You typically eat it with a spoon, even when it's not super thick. It shouldn't really be pudding. It should be
When we've
pourable.
had it in the South, it is almost pudding.
And that, unfortunately, I think is a too much cornstarch, or it's been, it shouldn't be, a lot of what I was reading, it shouldn't be that thick.
Okay.
It should still pour in the same way. Like mousse, for instance, isn't pourable. Like it kind of gets stuck. Like whipped cream isn't pourable. It kind of gets stuck or when it's whipped. But it should be like pancake batter.
Okay.
Is what it seems like. And yeah, no, it's a fun little. Again, it's a little different of a thing. Like, I mean, people put whipped cream on it. Apparently, it's an American invention. You're welcome, world. People put all sorts of toppings on it. But no, it's especially in the winter. You're going to see it a lot more. But if you're thinking like, again, I wanted to put this in there, and Darcy wanted to put this in there because a lot of people do come to Italy to ski in the winter. And I think like what goes hand in hand with skiing better than hot chocolate, obviously, or club sandwiches, which is so weird. But like apparently,
That must be American though, no?
right? Like we're gonna go to the clubhouse and get us like a club. I'm like, no, we're not having a club sandwich when we're skiing. That's weird.
I don't know. My family's never been to those fancy places, so I don't know what they
Love
have
that.
there.
I love that for you. I don't know. I've also
Your
not.
dad's always got stories of like, well, at the club,
Yes,
so and
I
so
know.
happened when
It's
he was
amazing.
a kid.
Yeah, I
he's
love
a great
it.
person.
Yeah, we have. I did not go to the club. It's not true. Actually, I had a couple lunches at the club.
With the sandwiches.
Yeah, it's the most disgusting food. But yeah, so no, I think it's fascinating. Like if you were gonna come here, it's not like, oh, let's walk with our hot chocolate. I'm like, that comes in a bowl or like a mug, and you have to eat it with a spoon typically.
Oh yeah.
It's a very decadent. I mean, decadent. And I think we don't really want to get too much into this because it's a lot. We could talk about Torino and the history of chocolate in Torino. But if you like chocolate, which is kind of like a weird thing to say, but I think people don't like chocolate. There are definitely some people. But if you like chocolate, if you're really into it, you should absolutely visit Torino because it's sort of I don't know, it's like the epicenter of chocolate in Italy is in Torino. It's sort of just like all the coffee drinks with chocolate.
Drinking chocolate or
kind of all of it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, like Perugia obviously is Perugina, but it's owned by Nestle now, not really there.
Yeah, no.
But no, but like I think Turin, Torino has like it's like all the chocolate drinks, all the chocolate, everything is in Torino. It seems like that's the big thing. And then it kind of spread from there, like hot chocolate in this example. It started in Torino and then spread throughout Italy from there. But it wasn't like, I mean, it's one of those things that didn't come to like Naples from the Spanish. It came to Torino from the Spanish, apparently, which is kind of fascinating.
Wow, Torino, great place to visit in the winter in Italy.
It really is,
evidently.
yeah.
If you listen to our last episode, I think it was, we talked about the Luce d'Artisti, the Lights by Artists Lights festival.
That also happens in Torino, as well as Salerno. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Get a nice little coffee, chocolate beverage and look at the lights. You can't drink your beverage while you're looking at the lights. That's not Italian. You got to have one, then the other.
Well, yeah. And I was going to say, if we were at some point in the very near future, we're going to be talking about moving to Italy and living in Italy because we keep meaning to talk about moving and living in Italy, but Piemonte, which is Piedmont region, which is Torino is the capital of the Piedmont region. It is not only the cheapest region in the north, it's also, well, I was going to say one of the more affordable, but yeah, it's the same thing. It is the cheapest region in the north, and it's really quite nice. I mean, it's it's not as historic as some other cities might be, just in terms of it's quite a new city. It's only like 1800s, but it's gorgeous, and there's always things happening. Like it's just it's big on art. It's big on just like the humanities, and yeah. So if you're looking to move to Italy or live in Italy, Torino's definitely a place to check out, especially like chocolate.
Definitely.
So what's next?
Let's talk about, this might be my favorite one to say, chiacchiere.
Love it.
I know, me too. So chiacchiere, really, it means chit-chat in Italian. So you're eating chit-chat. And I think it's because of the sound it makes. It crackles.
That makes sense. I always assumed it had, I always thought it had to do with like when they were making it. Mm-hmm. It was just like...
You chat while you make it?
You chat while you make it because it's what else are you going to do? Yeah.
I think someone told me, some Italian told me that a long time ago.
Okay.
Like chiacchiere, it goes...
Love that.
That's my crackling sound.
That's kind of...
So basically, they're sort of long ribbons of dough. And some people say it's the same dough as the strufoli, but...
No, you're dead wrong. Absolutely not. Because one's actually okay sometimes, and the other one is never okay, taste-wise.
Yeah, I don't know. But it's lovely ribbons of fried dough, essentially, dusted in, what's it called? Pastry sugar? Powdered sugar. Mm-hmm.
This is another one, too, that just... I mean, I know we're getting close to the hour mark, so we're going to start speeding this up. But that's another one where I'm just like, that... Like, I'm thinking, like, coming from this... Like, I guess I'm American, obviously. But, like, we don't have simple desserts. I feel like all of our desserts are pies, cakes, this, that, the other thing. Like, and then it's like, here, it's like, oh, it's fried dough with sugar on top. I'm like, that's it? Like, no, that's it. That's all we invented. Like, that was the peak. Because even, like, the churro, I'm like, has... thing, because like the churro is a fried dough. I'm like, no, the churro, like, it puffs up and it has cinnamon and sugar and it's yummy and it's a star shape. This is like literally, you take like lasagna and you fry it and put some sugar on top.
It's like when you have the leftover pie crust.
Yeah,
that's kind of what this is, but fried and nice.
It's good. It's very good.
And a lot of people use I mean, it's a very simple recipe essentially, except that people put in different kinds of liqueur to add a flavoring. Okay. So some people will add like a liqueur or marsala or vinsanto or what's the anise?
Strega.
Strega, yeah, or grappa, which is not anise, but just kind of different flavoring. But it's really lovely.
And to go to actually, if we can use that as a jumping off point, a lovely segue. Speaking of strega, there are the last two desserts I did want to cover. One is mostaccioli, and that is essentially, it's a lot of things. And... which is a very complicated dessert, apparently. It's a very simple dessert. It looks like I would call it a diamond shape, but apparently it's not a shape. So it's a rhombus shape or a parallelogram. And it is chocolate covered. And so basically, some of them are cookies. Some of them are cookies, and then sandwiched between the cookies are like a filling. And sometimes we've had it where it's just the filling.
Which is the best way. I know that sounds absurd. I love cookies.
Yeah.
But the best ones we've had are what people would call just the filling. Yeah. But it's almost like what I think of it as the panforte. It's like similar to that.
Exactly.
But then covered in chocolate.
And I think the ones we've had, or at least the ones we've liked the most, are basically fig and honey and I think other dried fruits, nuts, blended together with rum. One of the ones we had was rum.
Oh, it's so nice.
Sometimes it's strega, speaking of strega, covered in chocolate, and it's this little shape. And they're really quite, again, decadent is the word I would use, just in terms of like, it's very heavy. These are not light desserts at all. They're quite heavy. They're quite just forte. Speaking of pan forte. And the other one, again, speaking of strega, because strega, we've talked about it before. It's a yellowish colored liqueur from Benevento, which is a region in the south. It means witch. Darcy, I think, actually briefly talked about it in the witch episode.
The witches of Benevento are quite famous.
The witches of Benevento are quite famous. And so strega is named after them, or named after witches, I guess, or witch. And another one is popular, is called panzerotti, which is kind of like there's a lot of panzerotti, just like there's a lot of mostaccioli. Interestingly, when you type in mostaccioli, what you're going to get is penne, the pasta, in the oven, sort of like a baked ziti.
What?
Which is weird. I've literally never heard of this until I looked it up, because here, mostaccioli really just means the one thing. Yeah. And this, I don't know if it's an Italian-American thing. I don't know if it's just straight up American. I don't know if it's like, I don't know what it was.
So it's pasta al forno. It's pasta in the oven.
It's kind of like, imagine a lasagna, but you made it with penne instead. So it's almost soupy in that sense. Like
it has nothing to do with sweets or chocolate.
0%. And this other one, panzerotti, is more, it's often called calzone fritta, like fritti where we are, like the fried calzones.
It's called that, or it looks like that?
No. I guess like the actual, like a typical panzerotti is just a fried dough with something stuffed inside. I see. And typically it's tomato mozzarella, but here we are just called it fried calzone rather than panzerotti. Panzerotti, I think, is Pulian, I believe, and some other region. It's not at all from where we are. But what I am talking about, the dessert version, is essentially a wine olive oil based dough that is without leavening. I think I don't think it's just like they call it pasta, but it's dough, I guess, but not dough in the way like bread dough more. It's
pastry dough.
Pastry dough. Okay. And then it's filled with blended, typically, like the most typical version you'll see, especially around the wintertime, is blended chestnut and chocolate with a dash of strega.
Oh, it's so good, you guys.
And again, that's another one of these ones where I'm not that picky with desserts, by the way. I have like a major sweet tooth. There's a lot of stuff I won't eat, or alcohol I won't drink, because I don't really care for it. So it has to be like, oh, that has to be good. But with sweets, I feel like, I'm like, yeah, stack my plate up. Give me one of everything.
Sugar,
I love it.
Take it.
Yeah. And I think there's a couple where I'm just like, that is just not worth it.
Yeah, we've had some not good ones, but the good ones are so good.
And I think that's the thing. The good ones are great and the bad ones are terrible.
Yes.
And it basically has a flavor of chestnut, it has a flavor of chocolate, and it has a little flavor of strega, or sometimes you use rum, or sometimes you use another alcohol, or sometimes no alcohol at all. It's just chocolate and chestnut. If you're getting a theme, by the way, there's a lot of alcohol in Italian desserts.
They slip it in there too.
Yeah, slip it in there. It's like they slipped and then dumped the entire bottle in there. It is heavy. And they're quite yummy. But you'll know, I think it's like late November, early December. It's usually chestnut season, at least where we are, and there's chestnut festivals. And that's a pretty popular one of like a dessert they'll make. And it's essentially a little paste stuck inside a pastry sheet, and either the pastry sheet's folded over or it's sandwiched between two pieces, and it looks an awful lot like ravioli. And again, dusted with powdered sugar, because, I mean, I don't know if we've talked about this, not necessarily this episode, but before in the history of Only a Bag, but it's almost like you can't have an Italian dessert that isn't dusted in pastry sugar.
In southern Italy. I feel like it's a southern Italy thing, because if you look at the pastries in pastry shops, well, I guess even in Rome, but like definitely in the north, there's not so much maybe there's some. Anyways, southern Italians, they love to dust some powdered sugar on top of everything.
And it's not like, I genuinely don't mind. It's just, I'm used to unflavored powdered sugar. It tastes like sugar. And they often use a fake vanilla flavored powdered sugar here. And it's like the first time you have it, it's not bad. But it's like the 10th time you have it, it's just like, I wish this didn't have the sugar on top, because it's not good. It's just overwhelming the flavor of the dessert. And that's it for me. Those are the last of my desserts. So what is your last dessert or desserts?
Well, I think I've actually finished my desserts, but I want to run through some New Year's Eve and New Year's Day things that you should be eating.
Since you'll probably be listening to this in the new year, unless you have hacked into our computer and are listening to this as we record it.
That would be wild.
Yeah,
if you're doing that, please
that.
let us know.
Yeah. There'd be some other issues, I feel like.
Okay, so given that you guys are listening to this, if you're listening on the day it comes out, you're listening on the first day of the new year, you're going to miss the first top of my list. However, I think we can all grant a,
continuation.
A continuation, because I was late in telling you all this. At the stroke of midnight, you're supposed to eat 12 grapes for good luck.
Okay.
I think you can do this anytime. When you hear this episode, if you want some good luck, I think we can manifest that all together. Eat your 12 grapes anytime. You're going to get some good luck.
Or do it at the stroke of midnight, just like the first day of the new year, maybe. Just stay up super late.
Yeah, you could. I wasn't going to make people do that.
Okay. Well, that's you don't have to do that.
So typically you should be eating these 12 grapes at the stroke of midnight. And some families, like some people say like, oh, you only have to eat 3 or 5 or 7 or whatever it is. But
yeah, the more the better, I feel like, with the grapes.
Yeah, but I mean, don't hurt yourself.
I just meant like if it's 3, 5, or if it's like you get good luck based on the amount of grapes you eat, like make it 12.
Eat all the grapes.
Make the whole bag or satchel or whatever they come in.
So 12 is, I think you could call that a standard. 12 grapes at the stroke of midnight for good luck on Christmas. No, what? On New Year's Eve.
Okay.
Night.
So if you're listening to this as soon as it comes out, that was 5 hours ago.
Yes.
If you're on the East Coast. Or
so
11 hours ago.
anytime you can do it this year, and I think you'll be getting good luck. But next year, if you want to do it, you can do it at the stroke of midnight.
There you go.
Some other things that you should be eating for good luck, if you're super superstitious, as I am, lentils, which I think is fun because we in the U.S., is it just the southern U.S. or everywhere that you're supposed to eat?
I feel like it's just the southern U.S., but I don't really know.
In southern U.S., you eat black-eyed peas on the first day of the year for good luck. No,
Which is fun. I don't really like
what is it?
peas.
I think it's for fortune, like good fortune. And
isn't it collard greens and black-eyed peas? And
yeah, but collard greens are for money. Black-eyed peas, I think, are just for good fortune.
Okay, I didn't know if it was like dollars and change or something.
I don't think so.
Okay.
And a lot of these, if you look them up on your own, some of the things I list are going to have like more specific things that they'll grant you, but a lot of it's just good fortune and luck. So lentils for good luck. Pomegranate, again, I like to say this one's for good luck. A lot of people associate pomegranate with like femininity and fertility.
I think also rebirth, though.
Oh, yeah, I like that. That's nice.
Because isn't it the whole like pomegranate is out of Hera, and also like pomegranate seeds are like the way out of the underworld, like sort of symbolizing.
I didn't know that, but I love that.
Yeah, I can't remember. Somebody was eating pomegranate seeds, like, or you eat a pomegranate seed to stay alive in the underworld. It's supposed to symbolize like the end of winter or something.
I love that. Let's have some pomegranate.
Gotta put a pin in that and come back to it later.
Yeah, absolutely. What else? Mandarins. That's a pretty easy one for good luck.
Like
love
just
that one.
could be clementines, any oranges, or specifically mandarins.
It says specifically mandarins, but I think any kind of orange that you can get your hands on. Yeah,
squeeze some lemon juice into the water, you're good.
Yeah, I think with the right intentions,
right,
you can make anything happen. Lucky. And this is another kind of this one is okay. Dried fruit and nuts is what you should be eating, but I'm laughing because that's kind of just like Italian dessert.
Yeah,
I feel like they were like, oh, we have this. Let's say that it's good luck.
There's that first season of Loki, I think, where Owen Wilson is asking Tom Hiddleston, who plays Loki, he's like, don't you have dessert? He's like, yeah, fruits and nuts. And he's like, no, that's not dessert. Yeah. And I think about that a lot because being in Italy, people will put out fruits and nuts as a dessert sometimes. And I'm like, that's not dessert. Mm-hmm. That's fruits and nuts.
But then they also bring out the heavily sugared and alcoholed other treats.
The other treats. So it's either like dried fruits and nuts
but they're kind of equal. They're both dessert.
And I'm like, those are not the same things. That being said, of course, we do have now a selection of fruits and nuts at all times in the house to put out as a dessert or as like when someone comes over, like, oh, chocolate, fruit, nuts. Mm-hmm. So we have become one with our intentions of, I don't know, dessert.
Mm-hmm. And mandarins.
And oh my God, yeah. This is, clementines at the very least.
Oh yeah, clementines.
This is clementine season.
Mm-hmm. You eat clementines like a monster. Not in the way that you eat them. You just eat a lot of them.
So that's what, 45 cents a pound? Mm-hmm. And I'm just going through them like no one's business. That is like 15 a day. Mm-hmm. It's probably not good for you.
So have some today and tomorrow and you'll have good luck.
It's just nothing but vitamin C.
There you go. That's your good luck. It's going to keep you healthy.
Yeah. It keeps the scurvy away. No wonder. That is a good thing for the new year. No scurvy 2025. So with all that being said, I think that's the wrap.
Yeah.
That's the panettone. I don't know. There's no pun there. I was like, because wrap is a sandwich. So I was like, what's like it's a dessert, but I couldn't really think of one.
No.
That's the piadina.
There you go. That's the sandwich.
It's Italian for the little wrap that you can get.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, thank you all so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode on our favorite part of being here in Italy, which is the sweets
desserts
around the wintertime, where everything else is dark and gloomy and slightly depressing. Our kitchen is filled with a bunch of sugar, typically. So it's a lot of fun for us. And we hope that you enjoyed this fun culinary journey across 3 parts of Italy. 3 very specific parts.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's everything.
Yeah. And share this with your friends if you like our podcast, please. That would be great. And if you have any questions or anything, you can always reach us anytime at onlyabagpodcast.gmail.com.
Thank you. Or onlyabagpodcast on Instagram. And we will try to actually get back sooner than later. We get the messages and we're like, we should respond. And then it's sort of like a mix between how do we sound nice and like...
We both have anxiety about sending messages. We want to be as excited in our message as we are in real life without coming across too creepy. So
and then
sometimes
we water it down and it sounds super corporate.
Yeah.
We're like, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate your support. And I'm like, that sounds awful. Mm-hmm. It's just like in my head, it sounds so enthusiastic and it comes out just sounding like I got AI to write a thank you message. So thank you all seriously so much though for your messages, for the comments, for the reviews. We really genuinely appreciate it. It does. It makes us happy.
So, and it's amazing. Thank you.
It's fun to see. I don't know. It's fun. It's cool that we're not shouting into the void when we talk about panettone at New Year's Eve before we're supposed to have a party with 2 people coming. We're very excited. We have a view of the valley. We're going to see all these lights and what are they called? Fireworks. Fireworks. I'm like, those lights in the sky. What are those?
Fuochi artificiali.
Ooh, artificial fire. Yes, ma'am.
I love that.
It's a great word.
Speaking of Italian, if you want to sound super cool and tell your friends Happy New Year in Italian, you can say buon anno.
Yes, you can.
That is BUON space ANNO.
Buon anno.
Buon anno.
Auguri as well as for wishes. Mm-hmm. And I think that's
for
actually...
wishes, not wishes. I know you said wishes, but just
to be clear. Wish. I think that's it, right? That's all we say. Auguri, buon anno.
Yeah.
Okay. Ci vediamo prossimo anno. We'll see you next year.
Exactly.
But we will talk to you all next year. And we hope you've enjoyed this 2024 with us. Thank you all again so much for your support and listening to the podcast. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. We'll see you in 2025.